Hello, this is Angela Anderson. Thanks for joining me for this acrylic painting tutorial. In this video, we're going to be painting a really pretty sunflower field with a sunset in the background. We're going to be putting together all of the stuff that we learned in my Learning How to Create Depth series last week. So hopefully this will be informative and you'll enjoy it. Got my husband Mark with me.
Hey there, everybody.
He's going to chat tonight so you can ask questions while we're painting here. Let's get started. Alright, so I haven't done anything to my canvas. I thought about painting it, but I think I'm just going to kind of paint in each section as we go. I'm going to start out with some chalk. This is a 9 by 12 inch canvas, and I have not done anything to prep it. If you have a really rough surface canvas, you could paint it with gesso if you wanted to, but most canvases will come pre-gessoed, so you don't really have to do that. I know some artists like to do that. It's just a personal preference, I think. As far as brushes go, we're going to want to have some sort of brush for our trees and clouds, so some sort of stippler will do. I've got a Deerfoot and a blender here, and both in 3/8 inch size. Red handles are VelvetTouch, and these ones are Select, both from Princeton. And then the black handles are the Aspen brushes. I've got let's see, an 8 round, a 4 angle, and a 2 bright for some of the flowers and things down here. And then I've also got a few random brushes that I'll pull out if I need them. I'm not really sure. Oh yeah, I've got a couple more of these short-handled Aspens here, a 4 Filbert and a 4 round. All right, I'll mention them as I use them. So, and then for the background, I'm going to start out with a 6 Filbert in the 6100 series. So you don't have to have all these brushes, just use what you've got that's similar, that'll be fine. All right, let's go over colors. I've got burnt umber, burnt sienna, yellow oxide, cadmium yellow light, cadmium yellow medium, India yellow hue, cadmium red light, quinacridone magenta, unbleached titanium, Cobalt teal, phthalo green yellow shade, unbleached titanium, titanium white, and gloss glazing liquid. If you don't have these colors, I've got 3 yellows here, you really don't need all 3, so you can mix this cadmium yellow medium with these 2 on either side. The cadmium yellow light is one that I usually have on my palette. This, if you have it, grab it. If you don't, then just mix something a little bit darker with either an orange or a darker yellow, okay? That like an India yellow or something like that. All right, I think that's it. And somebody asked me about pyrrole orange. You could substitute pyrrole orange for cadmium red light in any of my tutorials pretty much. So that's another one that's, pyrrole orange is transparent, cadmium red light is not. So, and cadmium red light is expensive. So if you're going for a cheaper option, pyrrole would be the way to go probably. All right. Let me see if that's, yeah. Okay.
Are you fact checking yourself?
Yeah, I'm fact checking just to make sure. Yeah, so a series 9 is the most expensive. A series 1 being pyrrole is the least expensive. So, or one of the most expensive, I should say. So they will be significantly cheaper. I just wanted to make sure I was telling the right information. I'm like, I think that's true. It's been a while since I bought paint, so. All right. Still a lot of people leaving me angry emails. All right.
At least about that.
Huh?
At least about that.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Other angry emails are fine. Just not about that. Okay. All right, so I want to split this canvas, most of it being our flowers. So I'm going to go halfway and then just go just above that and kind of do a horizon line there. And last week we talked about horizon line, how things in the distance are going to get lighter and less saturated, possibly a little bit cooler in color. Whatever, and start to pick up the color of the sky in between you and the object, that kind of thing. So we're going to put all of that into use here, and I'm just going to kind of do a rough tree line. I'm going to move this big tree so that it's not so centered in the middle. I think I'm going to move it over here, and then maybe put a couple bigger sunflowers down here, maybe make them a little bit bigger than what's in the picture. so that they kind of have a little bit more forced perspective. And the ones back here are just going to be little dots, you know. So we got lots to do here though, so I don't want to waste too much time talking here at the beginning. I want to get going here. So I'm going to just put in some rough mountains here, and there we go. All right, so that's going to be all sky, and I'm just going to block in my colors as I go, like we did last time. I did a sky, which was for the the ocean one, and that seemed to work out pretty good. So it's kind of a little bit faster way of doing it, maybe than starting out with the full color all over and then changing it. I'm just going to block in the sections of the clouds and then work the edges so they blend. All right, so I'm going to get some of my cadmium yellow light and a little bit of my white here. I grabbed some cadmium yellow medium there too, just a little bit warmer, and I'm going to go just across right here, all along that horizon line, or the line between the mountains and the sky there. And I'm going down over my mountains in that area too. All right, that works good. And then we'll go to a next color, which might be the cadmium yellow, or the India yellow. Maybe a little bit more of a warm yellow. Remember, the warmest color in our toolbox is going to be a color like the Cadmium Red Light that is a really bright, vivid orangey red. So anything going away from that is getting cooler on either side, right? But if you've got a color here and we're on the color wheel, say, then as it moves towards that color, it's getting warmer, right? That makes sense. All right, mixing that cadmium with my yellow, and going to use the edge of this brush, and this is that Filbert, and I'm just going to do some little side-to-side brush strokes here, and maybe get a little bit of the white to kind of make it more pale right here. A little bit more white. I'm going to knock it down a little bit in this area. There we go. It's a nice soft pinky color, and I'm going to use this along that horizon line here, and kind of fill in the rest of this down here with that. I'm going to get a little bit of the magenta now. Add a little bit of magenta on this side. Okay, getting some more of the yellow, mixing that with what's in my brush. Adding a little bit of white to it. There we go. Nice little kind of orangey color here. I'm just doing some little horizontal tiny clouds. Remember, the clouds are going to get smaller as they approach that horizon line, so we want those down here to be really small, and then they'll get a little bit bigger as they go up away from there. But I think that looks good. Get a little bit more white here. Do a little bit more white. Just transition a little bit there. Anytime you have kind of a harsh transition, you can get a little bit of white, add that to the color, and then just sort of blend over side to side with that, and it'll help kind of blend out any really obvious areas. Just a nice little transition. Let me get some of that brighter orange and pop that in over here a little bit. Okay, so I'm trying to get this in kind of on one go so I don't have to come back to this and fiddle with it. And this is working pretty well for me. right, let's go ahead and put in a sky color, which is pretty much white in this. Maybe a tiny, tiny, tiny bit of blue. So I think maybe get a little bit of cobalt teal and add that to my white and just use that up here. That'll be a nice contrast for all these oranges. Having a blue that's like a little bit more of a teal blue will be pretty with the orangey sky. Contrast well with it. Okay, there's a bunch of little areas where there's just like a little peekaboo through the clouds of this color. So I'm just going to kind of pop it in around in some different areas up here and then sort of work around it as I add more colors. Kind of picked up a little orange there, but that's okay. Okay, I think that'll do. Because this is such a light area, you can, you could even put the whole, do this in the whole top area. It wouldn't hurt anything. Because it's going to cover pretty well. Okay, that looks good. And we need to remember that color because we can use that in our mountains as well as all these other colors. So I want to spray these so they don't dry out so I can dip into these when I'm painting my mountains, especially the colors that are right next to where the mountains are going to be. All right, then I'm going to go with a more like purpley red now. Let's go ahead and get a little bit of the magenta and mix that with a little bit of that white and orangey color that we had here. And we'll use that. That'll be really pretty. And this is where I'm going to have to start being a little bit more careful where I'm putting this. Kind of going around my blue areas and trying to create kind of softer transitions there between those areas. So I'm kind of using the edge of my brush now and dabbing with it so that I'm getting softer rounded tips to the clouds. Okay, and these are those big clouds that are just kind of dominating the whole upper area here. Kind of filling in. And then there's kind of a gap right in here where some of them are meeting up. Okay, I think that looks good. I'm going to grab some of that orange just below and kind of dab that up into that area too, and then go over the transition area between the two and dab that in. If you do this while it's wet too, it makes it a little bit easier for these colors to blend and soften. So I'm not doing too much of the canvas here at first. Just kind of maybe one side of it, and then I'll come back and continue it on the other half. Right, going back to that magenta color. How are you doing over there? I'm moving around a lot. What's going on?
I was trying to set up a side cam there, but
Oh,
very creaky tripod.
yeah, it is. It's just
I'm
not
being
very quiet.
I'm being very sneaky.
You're being very sneaky over there.
Yes,
Stealthy.
absolutely.
Stealthy.
I don't even know I'm here.
Okay. Getting some magenta and some of the ultramarine blue. Ultramarine. Let's make it sound like it's ultramarine. Ultramarine. My brain doesn't want to say the whole thing. And then I'm going to go back into these same areas and then just start adding a little bit more intense color kind of in the upper half of these cloud sections. So where they're overlapping, leaving a little bit of that lighter color toward the bottom where it's facing the sun. See that? Just that little line of that lighter color between those sections here. And that'll kind of help push these back and make that light look like it's coming from below. Okay. All right. I'm seeing some kind of disconnect between this area and this area, so it just means that I need to use some more of both colors kind of in this bottom area here. So I'm going to get some of that magenta and mix it with the cadmium red. That should make a nice bright reddish color, and then I'm going to add just a little bit of white just to tone it down, because these are kind of soft. They're not like full vibrant colors. This will help give it that transition that we need in this area. Maybe a little bit more white. I think I'm going to add glaze just to help make it a little bit more translucent too. So anywhere where you're seeing like a real obvious line or just doesn't look right, you can maybe pop a little bit of this color in, help make that transition. And then we're going to add bright yellow to these clouds to really push them back even more. So we're not done with this area up here. Yeah, I think that'll help a lot. Right through there. And then I think the last thing I want to do, if it's the last thing I do, I'm going to add a little bit of red, or a little bit of ultramarine blue and white, and use that in some of these upper here, just kind of up toward the top here. There's like a little smoky gray blue color to some of these. Just right at the top of that purple. Okay, I think that will do nicely. And that color will be our mountain color too, or one of them. Okay, I'm gonna get a little bit smaller brush so I can get in and finagle some smaller details. So I think I'm gonna get a Filbert number 4 Filbert that's in the VelvetTouch. This is a long handled one, but you can use the shorter handle too. Doesn't really matter. Really, the long or short handled thing is just a preference thing. A lot of times when I'm doing clouds or things where I want to have a little bit more free movement, I'll use a longer handle. And then when I want to get up close and do some detail work, the shorter handles are nice, because I'm holding it up closer to the ferrule, or on the ferrule for that. Okay, so let's do this. Let's get, I want to leave myself plenty of room, so I don't want to go past an hour for this part, because it's going to take a while to do those flowers. All right, so I'm going to get the cadmium yellow light and a little bit of white. And I'm going to start with this Filbert and just going to touch along that tip, leading edge of some of these clouds, and create our little blippy highlights on them. And really should pretty much go on the bottoms of all of these areas here. A little bit inside, we can kind of do just some yellow But all these cloud areas here will get a little bit. If it's not showing up, just add a little bit more white to it. The white will help make that yellow more opaque. So if you've got an area where the white is just not showing up, you can add just a little bit more white. Or the yellow is not showing up, add more white. The top part does not need to have the yellow, so we're not putting it in this area. We're just putting it in the area that is closest to the sun, which is going to be right in this area somewhere. And let me go ahead and get my white out, and that will help me see that. So I've covered over some of my mountains that are going to be like right here. So I think I'm going to put my white like right there, maybe. Okay. And then kind of blend off the bottom edge of it. The sun kind of gets smooshed, cut off there at the bottom. So I'm going to do that. Now we can know kind of where to put our yellow. And these clouds that are really close to the sun, we may need to do white, a lot more white here, because we've got yellow in these areas and it may not show up with just yellow. So some white there around this area, and then changing to more yellow as we go away from the sun. Okay, so on this side, our light is going to be kind of on top because our sunlight is sort of running on top here. Or just like, just like in that area right there. These are sort of below here, and then this is sort of in line or above it, so those would be kind of on top a little bit. And once we get out here, that color is going to change to a more orangey glow because we're not right up by that sunlight. So kind of more oranges back in here. And we should have kind of a, already sort of a line there if we put our colors in right. Add a little bit of yellow down low there. Grab more of that orange. Use it sort of in here. And this is also cleaning up any of these rough edges that we've got here, so it's a nice way of kind of making our clouds look cleaner.
This is definitely not the range.
Not the what?
The range.
The range, what does that mean?
Well, because on the ranges, the skies are not cloudy all day.
Oh, okay. True.
You're welcome.
This is actually a generated image from a Google search.
Your biggest fan is watching.
Noah. Hi, Noah. I saw her yesterday. I told her I was going to say hi to her. How are you? It's my granddaughter.
And mine too.
Gigi's painting the sky. Peapaw's helping me. I wouldn't have ever known she was there if you hadn't said Peepaw wasn't here to tell me, so. I don't know how you got the name Peepaw. I guess it was Noah that started that. Yeah. She picked his name. Okay, I think that's good enough. Might go a little bit darker in the corners, but for now I'm just going to leave it and let it dry, and then we'll come back to it. All right, so let's pick a brush so we can do our mountain range. I think I'm going to switch to an angle because that way we can kind of get into some tight corners with it. And I'm just going to start out with, okay, well, let's start out by picking whatever color we decide we want our mountains to be. And we talked about that last week. So we'll mix up some color. I think I'm going to make kind of a tealish blue mountain range color. So I'm going to get my Ultramarine Blue and my Cobalt Teal and mix those two together. Maybe a little bit more Cobalt, maybe even some Phthalo green, because maybe it's got some trees and things in it. And then we can neutralize this color so that it looks, you know, less in your face, just by adding like a little daub of one of our neutrals here. And in this case, I probably want to keep it a little bit darker, so I probably wouldn't use the yellow oxide. I'd either use the burnt sienna or the ultramarine blue or burnt umber. Sorry, gosh, I can't say my words. The burnt umber will gray it out a little bit. The burnt sienna, when it reacts with a teal, kind of goes a little bit more teal, so it works as a good neutralizer for a teal blue, so that's why I chose it instead of the burnt umber, but both of them would work. The color might just be a little bit more grayed out if it was burnt umber. Okay, that's going to be a lovely color for our mountains. We can always add more green to it if we want it more saturated, but talked about that last week, how the distant mountains will be less saturated, and also that the distant mountains would be cooler blues. It'll also have the colors of the sky in it, and especially around the sun, we'll kind of go right next to that sun and add our color of that yellow right there. So I'm going to get some more yellow and my white, because I mixed into that color over there, so I don't have any left. All right, then I'm going to get just a little bit of this green here, mix those together. I might add just a little bit of the orange to it too. Okay, so that'll be my color of my first mountain here, and that'll be the one that kind of skims right up next to the sun there. And depending on how much yellow or how much green I add, you know, you may have a slightly different color here. Maybe a little bit more reddish if you want a little bit more red. I do see a little bit more gold in there, so maybe add a little bit more gold. But the main thing is you don't want your value to get too much. You want just slightly darker than the background. So I don't want my value to go too dark too quickly. There we go. And keep it fairly light and almost disappearing into that sun. All right, and then I'm just gonna blend it down a little bit. Looks good. It's got some orangey color, a little bit of that green. Okay. Now the next one is going to have a little bit of the reds. Kind of as I move out, I'm going to kind of add a little bit more and more of the other colors that I used. So let's get a little bit of this orange and mix it with our mountain color. Just a tiny bit is all I need really. Back here there's not a ton of the mountain color. The sun is really monopolizing the color back here. So something like that, coming just above there. Maybe go a little bit darker and get a little bit of that cadmium red. Mix it with that yellow. And get a little bit of that green. A little bit brighter. There we go. There we go. Okay. And this will dry a little bit darker than it looks right now, so, you know, it helps to know that going in, not to go too bright with it. I'm adding a little bit of the brighter orangey color here, and then I'm gonna bring it up in this area and kind of just blend it out up into our mountain. It's gonna be back here. Something like that. All right. Then as it goes down here, it's going to get lighter as it goes down into the valley. So I'm going to get some white and just kind of blend out the bottom of it with white. Just like that. I'm going to get some of that white and yellow and do the same over here. I didn't blend that out at the bottom there. Okay, just a little bit. All right, that looks good enough. Go a little bit farther down because this comes pretty far down right here. Just make sure I have it far enough down so that that next mountain can go down, dip down. All right. And now this one is a little tricky because this mountain actually shifts color as it goes up here. So it turns more blue as it comes up that peak. So I'm going to get some of the purple here, Ultramarine Blue and Quinacridone Magenta, and add it to this green. And add some white to it because it's still not fully opaque or fully saturated. It's kind of grayed out, whited out, lighter in value. Okay. And then if this color and this color are close enough in value, we can transition them pretty easily without getting too fussy with it. So just gonna do like that. And then I need to lighten up that transition between those two. And so you kind of just have to pick the color that's in between, which would be magenta and that red, because this was the orangey red and this was the purple. So I'm going to pick a little bit of magenta to mix with my orange, and I already had that blue in this color in my brush. Okay, so I'm going to use that in the transition, and I'm going to try to get the value down so that they sort of just merge to one another right there. Maybe I go a little bit higher right there. Okay, now this was starting to dry, so it's not wanting to blend for me, so I just have to get a little bit more of that orangey color. Blend that back in right there. Now you see what that's doing. That's what we want right there, that kind of soft transition between that blue and the orange. And I think that should work. Get more white here. Okay, so that. Cleaning that out really good because I had a lot of color in there, and I'm going to get more of that reddish or that bluish color right here and bring that down. Now add some of that lighter color down low. Transition it up. That's the magenta and ultramarine blue plus a little bit of that green and some white. and more white at the bottom. More white here toward the bottom and just blending that up. Just trying to get a soft blend between that dark and light area right there. This is pretty tricky right here. So this, I'm not gonna lie, this is probably the hardest part of this part of the painting. The sky I think wasn't too bad. This part with the soft blending between the mountains right here. So in order to fix this, or like if you don't want to have to blend like this, what you could do is just put more divisions to your mountain. So instead of blending these two, I could put a blue mountain in front and just let this one be yellow or orange back here, and then do a division of this blue over here and cut into it. And I think that that would be an easier way probably of doing the same type of thing, you know, having it look good. So let's do the same thing over here. Let's go ahead and blend our light blue mountain. I think I've gone a little bit too dark with that, so I'm going to get a little bit more white. And this is that color that has just a slight, tiniest little bit of green in it. We're so far away that that green is not really coming into play too much. We're mostly sky colors back here. And then getting some of that magenta that's sort of in between the orange and the blue, and just blending those two together. Blend it off. If I have too much color in my paint in my brush, it'll just kind of put it where I don't want it. So I need to make sure I'm blend, and then wipe the brush, clean it out. So now I need orange, because I need to go back in and blend off this area here. So I'm going to get some of that orange, which is kind of this color I'm close to, and blend back in. And right here I'm laying down color a little bit more thickly, and then I'm going to wipe it off and just very kind of gently just try to kind of blend back and forth between these two and see if I can get them to merge a little bit. If they're too sticky, you can just let it dry completely and come back later. And you may have to do this 2 or 3 times before you get this. And again, if you're having trouble with this, it's too much for you, just make a new mountain with the new color. Don't try to blend it at all. Just, you know, you can have as many of these little mountains in different colors as you want back here. Just keep your orange ones kind of closer to the sun, and then your blue ones going in front, okay? That's what we're going to do over here. We're going to put another blue mountain. Don't want this to stress you out if you're new to painting and you're like, I can't do it. There are ways to get around it. You can do it. You just kind of, when you're first starting out, it can be challenging to blend. Even I'm kind of having troubles with these colors because that orange and blue don't want to mix because they're so different and they're kind of opposite on the color wheel. All right, so now I'm getting more of this green, and I'm gonna just add white to it and maybe a little bit of yellow sort of in this middle area here. So, but I want to go a little bit darker in value as I get closer to me. Each of these are gonna get a little darker. So just gonna see. Yeah, that looks good. And I think this might be all I do. I don't know if I'll even add, I might add a tiny bit of yellow, but let's just go ahead and start with this and see what we think. And I'm going to bring it all the way up to about right here and then down. Okay. And I can get some of that yellow. How are we doing on time? Okay, we're doing all right. Let's get this done. Do a little bit of yellow back here. But that really brightened it up, you see that? And I don't want it to look like it's coming towards us because that yellow is kind of a warmer color. Yellow and orange is warm. Don't want it to look like it's getting brighter necessarily. Okay, so there we go. Added a little bit of white and that helped tone it down a little bit. Looks good. blend it out. Right there, and then right here, we get a little bit more maybe of a blue. Ultramarine blue. Just changing the tone a little bit, but still quite light. Make sure I have a little white on there. Might even get a little bit of that purple. And I'm going to go right up to there. Come back down. Might get a little bit more of that green at the very top. Okay. Add a little bit of that blue to this one. And also fade it out at the bottom with some more white. Okay, so there I had too much white in my brush there, and I got it kind of where I didn't want it, so just kind of using it to blend it out there. There we go. There's going to be trees in front of most of this, so I'm not too concerned about this at the bottom here at all. And then over here, let's go and get a little bit more of this darker blue-ish color. And you can see just right here from where I'm blending it that it's going to be darker. And we'll put it right here, come in front. And all the way out. Okay. And I'm going to leave a little bit of this kind of going at a diagonal there so that it, because we might start to be seeing a little bit of detail there, so I think that'll be fine. I'm not going to blend it all out smooth. And just add some of that white at the bottom. Okay. Good. That looks weird, a little bit weird right there, so I'm just going to kind of blend that through. Okay, let's do some color over here. And over here, maybe we'll use a little bit of that ultramarine blue with that green color. And I'm going to use the same green as I used over here, but just maybe use a little bit more ultramarine blue in it. Ultramarine. Super mean. Do not want to mess with it. Having a bad day.
So does it bully all the other paints?
Yes. It's like, you better mix with me. She uses me on every palette, so you better know your place. Quinacridone Magenta is like, she uses me too. It's like, did I say I was talking to you?
So you hear the paints?
Should we be concerned? Just imagining the conversations, that's all.
Oh, okay. All right.
Sure, what happened there? Oh, I guess that was supposed to be blended right there. Let's blend those together. It's like, what is that? Maybe, yeah, I think those were supposed to blend. So just getting more of that magenta there. Getting more of the darker green. Now this time, these front ones are much darker. And this one will kind of span from up here to the top corner. And I'm going to tap with it so that it looks like it's like tree line right along that top there. Okay. And then all of this is going to be covered by trees, so just going to get some white here and kind of fill in this area with that. Oh, this will be tree line. Okay, I think that should do. I might go a little bit darker back there. I'm looking at it. A little bit darker. And then maybe a little bit more of the green in this front one here. That'll work. It's honestly, these mountains could be whatever shapes you want it to, and however you want to do them. They're really fun to think about which ones are where, and how they're interacting, overlapping. You just want the ones kind of in front to be getting more intensity and color, and a little bit more saturated and a little bit darker. As they come closer, I'm going to get a little bit more of that darker color just on the top of that one. Maybe that one's got a lot of paint on it, so it's not really letting me lay down new colors on top of it right now because it's so thick with paint already. So I'll just leave it alone. Let's go ahead and add a little bit more darker tones to the very top of our clouds up there. So I'm going to use the Ultramarine Blue, a little bit of the Magenta, and maybe a little bit of burnt sienna, and that'll just kind of neutralize it slightly because it's slightly grayed out. It's not super saturated in that area. Right in the very top corner. Okay, and then I'm gonna get some glaze so that the color goes down a little bit more translucently. Just gonna pop it in there. I really wish I'd done this on my seascape the other night when I did my seascape, because I think it would have benefited from having like a little, I got some green there. It would have benefited from having like a little bit darker in the corners, I think, just to make it seem more moody. More contrast equals more drama. So here you can see, how much more dramatic that looks with the colors. Just deepened up a little bit. Trying to stay away from the lightened areas of, kind of like right on the edges, and just kind of hit up the middle section of these clouds. You can also use your finger to blend if you get too much. You can kind of move it around a little bit. This can also be done with our yellows too, or whatever, other tones. Like if we decided we wanted more more pinks in our sky or something like that, you could glaze with that and just put that translucent color over the top to add it. Okay, I think we're close. I was trying to give these time to dry, but they didn't dry all the way, but that's all right. All right, I think I'm gonna switch to a blender here, and let's go ahead and first put down some color down here. So while this is drying, then we'll do our trees, and then we'll come back to our flowers down here. So on the bottom part of our flowers, I think I want to do like kind of a yellow and then maybe dab the greens in. But to make these look a little bit farther away, we can use like our yellow oxide. That'll be kind of a toned down yellow, less saturated. And then to also lighten it a little bit, we can add a little bit of our unbleached titanium to it, which is also kind of a desaturated yellow. And we're going to put, we had our tree line there, so we're going to put our trees like right in that area. So I'm just going to kind of dab this in for now. And just kind of put it in sort of rough and dab it so that it's a little bit uneven. Leaving a few little bits for our greenery to go in. And then we're going to, obviously add more detail to this, but this will be a good starting point. And then once we get to be about maybe halfway, we can start to add more green here, because then we'll have individual flowers. So maybe get some of the cadmium yellow light and our white and start kind of dropping in sort of where we want our flowers to be. Remember, I wanted to have a couple big ones down here. So right here. Thinking about the placement of them. And then okay, that'll be good, I think. And then let's do the rest of this with green. I'm going to get my phthalo green out, and I'm going to grab that teal blue that we used up in our mountains to darken it. Maybe get a little bit of burnt sienna to darken it. And down in here, I want it nice and dark. And where I have my sunflowers, I'm just going to kind of feather into those areas so that we can do the petals around them later. You don't need super hard edges there. And I can move this around it, put yellow on top of any of this that I want. So it's not like we're set in stone where these flowers are going to be right now. I just want to get some color down here, not be too fussy about it. But having it dark like this will help give us some depth, and then we can add our lighter greens on top and highlight it. So I'm going to get some more of that green. So Ultramarine Blue, Phthalo Green, and burnt umber. And just kind of fiddling around here. Adding, when I get done with this, I don't want to see any white, so I just want to make sure that I'm getting down in. Add a little bit of water to my brush. That'll help.
Okay, you ready for some facts for the
flower facts?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm not sure if they're fun, but they're facts. So, immature sunflower buds follow the sun, but mature flower heads permanently face east.
East, interesting.
Except for ours, they face north.
They face north, yeah.
Yeah,
because that's where our neighbor lives.
That's where our neighbor lives. They want to see him instead of us.
Well, they do kind of face east, though, now that I think about it. But yeah, we had one that was really pretty that just would refuse to face us. It was mad at us. I don't know why, but it was fully facing north the entire time.
Yeah, so I didn't know that.
I didn't either.
It's only when it's
east.
immature that they turn with the sun, and then once they mature, then they just stop.
Yeah, because we got lucky the way we planted them then, because we have them kind of on the north side of our garden. We're facing south to them, so we're seeing them kind of in profile somewhat, but still mostly facing us.
And then the arrangement of the seeds in the flower head follow the Fibonacci sequence, which is a mathematically efficient way to pack seeds.
Interesting.
So there you go.
I'm going to get some of the blue color and add it to some of this yellow color for the greens back here. Yeah, that's interesting. I like that.
So which came first, the Fibonacci sequence or the sunflower?
Fibonacci? Is that it?
Maybe. Okay, give me Fibbin.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's that kind of spiral that you see in nature, I think, right?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. And the sunflower head is a bunch of flowers themselves.
Right. Right. Which is hard for me to wrap my brain around, but try. All right, so any of the greens back here, I'm mixing them with the yellow a little bit, which is making them warmer, but I am also mixing the green using that more teal green. So it's not going super bright, and it's mixing it into this yellow that's already toned down, so it's not making a bright green. It's a desaturated green that's going back here. And lighter as it goes to the back. All right. Now this is one where we could get really fussy with all the details. I'm going to try to simplify it because there's so many of these little sunflower heads. I think if we do enough just like little dots and things in here, I don't think we're going to have to like paint each individual petal, kind of thing. Like by the time we get to about here, we shouldn't be seeing individual petals. We should just be seeing kind of general blobs of color, I think. And that will make this a little bit easier to do and not take 12 hours to process. Plus our brains won't, in a photograph, all of this is in focus all the way back here. But if we're seeing it with the naked eye, it's going to kind of blend together. And especially if we shift our focus to a foreground, then if you notice, you can't see detail on things if you're not looking directly at them. So everything outside of your direct focus is going to be kind of blurred anyways. So we'll just blur that out a little bit, and I think it'll make for a better painting experience, hopefully. All right, so I guess I'll use this one to start maybe, and then switch to the smaller one. I might just do all of it with this. Don't know. Notice my sun needs a little bit touch up of the white there, so I'm gonna touch that white up right in the middle, and I'm gonna get some yellow with that white. And I'm just going to kind of smudge out the edges a little bit of it. Okay. Good. All right, so let's go ahead and use this and we'll see how we like it. So let's go ahead and make a nice dark green here. I'm going to use my green, Phthalo green, and Ultramarine Blue. probably didn't need the cobalt teal in actuality. Well, I guess I used it in the sky, so I'm going to mix those two together, and then I'm going to mix it with burnt umber. Make a nice dark green here, and after I do this, I'm going to scrape my palette because I got no room to do anything. Yeah, that works. Nice and dark. I must want it black. I almost put black in my palette, but you can see, you know, we can get it almost black with the colors that we have, so there was no reason to have black. Burnt umber has black in it, so it's close enough. Or it's, I should say, it's not, it doesn't have black in it, but it's been burnt almost to black, so it's close enough. All right. So just dabbing that on and making sure I'm getting kind of a nice uneven edge there where my sunflowers meet. That will look nice. Okay. Let's just go all the way down with it and got it loaded up pretty thick with paint here, so I can kind of blend off that top a little bit as I go down. Try to keep it fairly straight here. It's not got a lot of difference here. It kind of goes pretty much straight across the canvas. It's not like water though. It doesn't have to be perfectly straight. It can be angled if you want it. If this was water, you'd want it perfectly straight, obviously. A lot of trees, land, we're okay. Okay. All right, so let's bring some up here, kind of. Just change up the size and height of these. Shape. I'm just dabbing so that I'm getting kind of little soft edges on there. This brush is nice for creating foliage. If it's a brand new brush, you may have to really like beat it into submission and press down hard to get it to flare out a little bit, you know, like that. These brushes can take a beating, and that kind of will help flare out those bristles so you can get a, you know, more texture. Okay, that looks good. Let's figure out where we want to put our large tree. I think I'm going to put it like right in here. We probably have some of that sky color in there too, so we may want to add a little bit of that along the edge of it. And I'm like leaving little bits of that background showing through as well. And this one we're not seeing the tree trunk at all really, because it's going down into those hedges there. I could bring it up higher if you wanted to, but I think I might just kind of keep it like that, and I might put the second tree on this side of it, or do another kind of mid-sized tree over here just to balance it out. Something like that. And then we could even do one over here. looks good. Two closer together, one kind of separated out a little bit, just to create a little interesting dynamics in the height. And if you've got any mountain areas that are problematic, you can, you know, put your tree there and kind of help blend out any areas that you don't like. So this is a fun little trick to do that. Okay, yeah, that looks good. Kind of don't like how this one, see how this one ends right there, so I need to bring it up higher, or should have had it low here, but I've already got it high, so I need to bring it up higher than that so that it looks better. You don't want to end on a line, because then your eye just want to keep going, wants to keep going, and it creates tension. Awkward. So I've got two that are doing that right here too. So I'm just bring this one up a little higher, just a slight little bit. It's not the end of the world, but it does kind of landscape, kind of a no-no. All right, so then let's add some light to these. So I'm just going to grab some of the sky color. So I'm going to grab some yellow, maybe cadmium yellow light, or cadmium yellow medium, and some of the yellow oxide, and some white here. I'm just mixing that into my green. Mix a nice sagey green color, and I'm just going to tap it along the edge, closest to the sun, and kind of in the middle maybe.
Which one is the sun?
What? Har.
Gotta do it every time.
You do.
I think people expect it.
The big yellow one's the sun.
Hey, wait a minute. He didn't do the sun joke.
A deep bright yellow right there, just to say those are getting hit by some of that bright light. Yeah, they expect it of you by now. You're gonna have to start paying Brian Regan royalties for using his joke. Okay. Yeah, so just adding a little details there. Like all of a sudden can't. Yeah. My allergies, man. There's ragweed or something blooming, and it's just almost as bad as the spring. Oops, I just covered up all that background, didn't I? One painted dendron. Let me see how much I can get off. Not much. Okay, let's try that again and not cover up all the background through the tree. So just talking and just tapping, tapping, tap. There we go. There we go. All right. So we got a good little glow back over here. Maybe not as much of the light hitting. So I'm going to go darker back here maybe. But like right in this area, go like real gold. Right. Looks good. All right, so let me see. I want to use a little smaller brush. I'm trying to decide how would be the most efficient way of doing it. And maybe let's try the angle brush. So we can do a little trick with the angle brush that most other brushes can't do, which is it's got this nice little pointy bit on it that creates really nice dots, believe it or not. So let me do this. Let me spray this off and get all this cleaned up. Give us room to do our flowers. Oh, that's nice. Nothing better than a fresh blade on the on my sharpened or scraper. That's it. I can use words. Mark cleaned it out for me.
Yes.
He's braver than me. They scare me. Thank you, honey. Works great.
You're welcome.
Okay, so one thing that I want to mention right about now is that there is something going on with my paints that I get a lot of questions about, because people are saying that they put down their paints and try to get it the same as amount as me, like about a nickel or a quarter worth of paint, but they end up having their paint dry out, or they're using more than me. And it could just be that they're loading their brush with more paint than I am. That could be the case. But if their paint's drying out on them before they can use it, and they're painting for, you know, we've been painting for an hour now or whatever, what could be happening is that you might be...
So which ones are you trying to point at?
These ones here.
Brown ones?
Mm-hmm. Or really, you know, all along here.
Here, go side to
Okay.
side kind of zoomed in hard.
Okay. So you see how I'm pulling just from the front bit here. If I was tapping into the middle part right in here, and this is all the way it was when I first put it on, zoom out just a little bit more. It's a little too close.
Oops. All right, let me get back. Okay.
Okay, so this part is drying a little bit back here, but we want it to do that because it's forming a little film. It's just keeping all that paint in the middle wet. And also I wanted to mention that even though I'm only putting down like a dime's worth or nickel's worth of paint this way, you see how thick that paint is there. It's almost the width of my brush, right? So I'm setting the paint thing down and I'm squirting it out until it comes up almost like an ice cream cone. And then I'm smushing it off to the side so that I have, you know, kind of the start of it. And all of this is undisturbed paint. And the more that I mess with it up here, the more pockets of air can get down in there and start to dry that out. If I leave it alone and only pull from the front here to pull fresh paint, then the paint up underneath there stays wet longer and you won't dry out your paint puddle. And also you have to have your paint puddle thick enough that it can do that. If you have a very thin, you know, you have a dime's worth, but it's super thin and flat, it's going to dry out on them almost immediately, you know. So you have to have like a little chunkiness to that paint daub that you're putting down, so that it can create that little barrier and leave the back end of those completely undisturbed as you work. That's my trick for keeping my paints fresh longer. And if you do that and start to get in the habit of doing that, I think you'll find that your paints will last a little bit longer before they dry out. Okay. Just wanted to point that out because I'd mentioned it in a post on my Facebook group. One of the followers asked about it. Can't
Very
remember
helpful.
her name, sorry. But shout out to whoever it was. I can't. Sorry. If you're in chat, shout out your name. But anyhow, and I'll mention it.
Hey, sport, how you doing?
No, I'm sorry. I didn't realize I was going to mention it, or I would have written it down. All right. Okay, so we've got our burnt sienna here and my angle brush. And what I can do is just dab it straight down, turn it upside down, and dab it, and should be able to get pretty nice little circles there. I think what I want to do is put a fresh bit of yellow down so that when I dab this, it kind of mushes together with the yellow and creates a nice little blend. So let's get some fresh yellow, and this yellow was, I'm trying to remember, Yellow Oxide, Unbleached Titanium, and white, I think. No, maybe no white. Maybe it didn't have white. I think it was just Unbleached Titanium. And Yellow Oxide. And did I use anything else? Maybe Cadmium Yellow? Let's try that. Yeah, I feel like there had to been a yellow in there.
Back to see.
Thanks. I don't want it to get too gummed up in my paint brush there, so I'm cleaning it off. And I'm going to get some white. Okay. So I've got white, and cadmium yellow light, cadmium yellow medium, unbleached, yellow oxide, unbleached.
Next yellow over.
This one, the yellow cadmium yellow light,
Some
titanium white,
unbleached.
unbleached titanium. Okay, that's what I was thinking. All right, so just going to use it kind of face down and dab my little keep them really tiny. I'm kind of just dabbing little dabs. Okay, I'm going to do about half there, and then I'm going to get my burnt sienna and maybe add just a little bit of that yellow to it, and then I'm going to go back in and dab in. Keep them really small. And do about half there. And then as they come down, we're seeing them cut. They're cutting each other off, so we're only seeing like the top half of these, so it's not like a circle. It's like a semicircle. So I'm going to kind of pull to the side just a little bit as I do it, and just try to keep it random. Let's just generally, like, gradually start to increase the size just a little bit. Okay, so that's all I'm doing there. can see. And that'll be enough, I think, for the distance there. We might add a few dabs of green to it as well, but I think that'll do. And then as we get here, we'll maybe do a little bit more, and then as we get here, we'll put more detail and more detail as we get closer and closer. Okay, but I think this is going to work for way back here. And there's not a lot of green that I'm seeing way back here either, so we won't have to add too much of the green, but it's going to really kind of blob that on. And we can always go over this if we don't like it, so just try it and see what you think. If you get too much of or your brush strokes are too big, we can go back in and kind of touch up any of these that look big or whatever. You know, it's not set in stone yet. Until we stop painting, we're not done, so you don't have to leave it if you don't like it. But you gotta be, I think there's a little bit of a bravery that happens when you're painting. Kind of have to just jump in there and try it. You know, the worst that can happen is it doesn't work out, and then you paint over it with another layer. Don't paint over the whole canvas, though. I hate when I see people do that, because it rarely do you need to scrap the whole canvas. You know, rarely have you ruined it so bad that you can't redeem it. And a lot of times people give up when they're just in the middle of the painting and not finished with it yet, you know, and they just kind of get discouraged because it doesn't look good yet. But nothing looks good when it's kind of in the middle of being created here, especially with art and painting. A lot of times the middle sections of the painting are really ugly looking. Call it the ugly stage. Just keep working at it and it'll get better. Really tiny little blobs, and I think having that wet yellow is really helping because it's kind of softening off this color a little bit so that it's not so in your face. Okay, these little ones here are just teeny tiny. If you've ever been to one of these sunflower fields, they're really fun. We went to one a few years back and picked sunflowers and ended up with this huge bouquet of sunflowers. It was like you buy the bucket, you know, like a set price for a bucket. You remember that one? Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was really fun. That was the first time I got like red and you know, orange and different colored sunflowers too. And in a field like that, saw them growing different varieties. It was really fun. Okay, so like right in here, I'm starting to see some individual heads, so I'm gonna kind of start plopping in some circles. Just kind of doing a little bit thicker brush strokes. Right there. Still keeping them pretty small. Right. Now let's go back to my yellow. At the very end, we can kind of, you know, add some little fuzzies around some of these too, if we need it. So as I get closer, I'm going to get a little bit more of this brighter yellow. Mix that into what I was using here. And maybe 2 daubs of this brighter yellow in bigger areas. And these should start to be kind of like in that size range there. So start to be where we're recognizing shapes and stuff. And if you watched our distance thing, we talked about perspective. So we can estimate the size based on our largest sunflower. So say we have a sunflower down here that's this size, and it is this distance from our horizon line, right? From the bottom of it to the horizon line. And we take that size and we half it. So kind of figure out what about the halfway mark is. And then we take this distance and we half that. Then all the ones that are in this size are going to be about that size. So this one's going to be about that big, right? And then going back, it's going to get half this distance is going to be half this size. So these ones are all going to be in this range, like that. It's just a general rule of thumb, but it can help you with your sizing and keeping it in mind. And if a sunflower is larger than another sunflower, then it'll be bigger, obviously, you know. So it's only the sunflowers that are exactly the same size as this one that rule would apply to. So they can be different sizes too. So, you know, if you have ones that are mixed in that are a little bit bigger or a little bit smaller, that's fine too. They don't all have to match the same exact size. It's just an easy way of figuring out kind of if we're keeping our sizes the right, general right range. As we get down to the bottom, a little bit more saturated, a little bit bigger. And some of them are going to be facing kind of down or facing to the side, so these shapes don't all have to be round, you know, too. And I want some darker colors and some lighter colors in here too. So some of these might get some burnt sienna and just mix that into my yellow and do some of them with a little bit of that mixed in to them so that they have a little bit of depth. And then we can come back in and add some of our brighter yellow on top. I'm kind of going over these with a little bit of that darker color, and I'll come back in and add more colors later. Giving those back there a little bit of variation in the color. Lighter and darker bits. Okay. How are we doing on time? Okay, I'm getting there. trying to keep these somewhat kind of circular shapes here, and then when we're ready we can come back in and add more highlights to these petals, make them individual flowers. Come all the way down. Okay. I really probably should have left more of this green down here. I do this. This is nothing new for me. Is there an opening? Can we put a flower there?
We want more flowers.
We're going to put the flowers there.
Oh, wait a minute.
I think I'm going to...
There's space right here for a flower.
There's another space. Yeah, exactly.
Look over here.
And there's... Well, I can fit a flower there too.
Perfect.
All right, I'm going to make a green. I'm going to make it kind of a softer, sagey green. And I'm not going to use this brush, though. It's too big. So I think I'm going to grab my Filbert so I can make kind of leafy shapes. And I'm going to use this color. And have it on just around in some areas back here. Just kind of keeping it sideways. My dog is sighing already, which means we're approaching the 2-hour mark. He always starts to sigh when we get close and he gets bored. Isn't that right, Fitzy? I'm going to add a little bit of yellow to it just so that it's kind of blending in with that color back here. If you want to add a new color but you don't want it to be too noticeable, you just make sure that it's the same value or close to the same value as the color around it. So by going with a green that is very close in value to that yellow, it won't really be noticeable. But then if I want to add a little contrast, I can, but this way I've got some little subtle pops of green in with my yellows way back there. They look like leaves. Okay. And I've kind of, if you notice, I've kind of got some leading lines of my green. So this green is kind of making a line here, and this green is kind of making a line in here. Whoop, just put some there, that's all right. So kind of keeping an eye on that so that I don't have a big line of green that's leaning out of the canvas. I'm trying to kind of bring them all in toward the middle here. And I need to make some of the darker green again. So I'm going to make up some green with my ultramarine. My paints are getting sticky. I haven't sprayed them in a while. Ultramarine blue, phthalo green, and burnt umber. That's that dark green color. This was the color that we used right here. So we'll use a little bit of it down here too. Especially in our foreground where we're going to see more detail and more contrast. We'll keep the less contrast and less saturation, less value shift way back there. And as we get closer, we'll start doing more deep darks and light right up next to each other for lots of contrast. So I'm kind of got both on my brush here. I'm gonna got a little bit of the light color on one side and the dark color on the other side. I'm just gonna kind of blend them as I go around my sunflowers here. Add little leaf-like bits. The leaves are coming off these stems, so even these ones in the foreground we can kind of put some stems in, and then the stems will kind of disappear down into the dark green.
Okay, somebody asked what size palette knife.
I don't know. This one is not marked. It's a Blick set, though. It comes with a bunch of different ones that are. I've got 2 of them, and they're in my Blick. If you go to the Blick link in the description, it's in my list there, of my art supplies list.
Okay.
So
Thank you.
it's, yeah, or you can buy them individually, but it's cheaper to get them in the set. And they have a good range of sizes in that set, so I like it. I like them because they're slightly flexible. I like a palette knife that's slightly flexible. It makes it easier to mix colors. Okay, so I'm just kind of trying to create little leafy marks. Their leaves are heart-shaped, so, and they come out and then create a kind of a flat blade that's like heart-shaped. So a couple of these in the foreground I'll like put in really carefully, and then the rest of them I'm just gonna kind of do little sideways blobs and hope that your eye fills in the rest. Especially as we get up here, you don't want to have any individual leaves showing, just some little there, like that. Be good. Okay. Making sure I've got nice dark and lights in here. I'm going to cover this one up, I think, completely. Maybe. I don't know. I'm kind of carving out shapes here. I've got a big blob here that I just need to carve out some sunflower shapes. Ones in front will be rounded, so I'm keeping that in mind. Okay. I'm going to cover that up mostly. Maybe just put it closer to that other one. Okay, kind of creating our little shapes there by carving around them with that green. We can always add in another one, so I think I'm going to put one here, but make it closer to this one. Okay. Get some of that burnt sienna with my India yellow. Use it on some of these. Okay. He's coming back, Fitzy. Don't. I can't let you out right now. Okie doke. That looks good. These will come together pretty fast once we get this kind of basic thing. So basically what I've done is kind of try to carve out some basic shapes, some of them going kind of in different directions, but you know, keep in mind that these are a round flower, so as they shift shapes, they're going to do stuff like this. You know, you're going to have these kind of long ovals that are changing direction, and we're kind of keeping them all sort of facing us somewhat, or maybe kind of slightly tilted. All right. And then making sure we've got green. So maybe let's add some more light colored leaves over here to some of these. Just, you know, some around some of these that are back here. Okay. Just putting a few little highlights to some of these. You can also just kind of do some grassy little bits if you don't want to do a bunch of leaves. So whatever, you just kind of want a little detail there. It'll help kind of sell the depth of the field to have really bright and really dark in that foreground, and then more faded as we go up. I'm gonna get some yellow, tab back over. Okay, and I think I want a brush that I can do some small individual brush strokes with, so I think some sort of a round. I might go with a little bit smaller one than what I have here. Let me see. Yeah, something like that'll probably work. So like a 2/0 round, or like a 2 round in the Aspen. I'll start with the 2/0 and see what I think. I'm gonna kind of dunk all my brushes in here, make sure they're not drying out before I get the chance to clean them. Okay. All right, so this is where I'm going to do the final kind of detailed work on all of these. And I think I'm going to start by just kind of defining the centers. So I'm going to get some burnt sienna and burnt umber. And I've already kind of gotten about halfway down, but up in here I'm going to start to get them a little bit bigger and start to go in the center of some of these that I've already done and create a flower. I'm kind of making them sort of oval sometimes round. Just finding these blobs of yellow that I've already got here, using them as my guide. So kind of already tried to sort of generally figure out sort of the sizing of some of these, how big I want them to be. Okay, and it kind of helps if you sort of do all the same size all the way down and then kind of start to switch to a next size down, because that way you're not having to skip around too much with the sizing, because it can get kind of confusing. So just know that right in here I'm going to start to get much bigger. And then bigger still as I come forward. Okay. And again, some of these are going to cover over other ones, so the dots are not going to all be fully round. Some of them will be, like if there's two that are right next to each other, maybe this one's only seeing that much, and then this one is bigger in front. That makes sense. So you can kind of do that with them. And if you want to do, you can always add one in an area if you don't have your yellow there. It's fine. We can always go back in and add our yellow around that area. So okay. And their sunflower center is, if you take the, sorry, on paper here. You're going to have a center, and then if you mark this distance right here, that's going to be the distance of your petals on the outside. So basically the center is going to be about half, the petals are going to be about half the size of the center, if that makes sense, all the way around. The radius, yes. Okay, so that's your sizing. So you're gonna have less petals around the circle than you realize. It's actually kind of a small area of the flower around that dark center that is actual, well, they're not petals, they're whatever, leaves. Right? Is that what the petals are, or the flowers are in the middle? Is that right? Am I saying that right? Because these are, the yellow part around is leaves. And the flowers are actually the center part.
Yeah, they're petals.
Individual petals.
Yeah, I
or
think they're also
individual
considered flowers, though, but let me double check.
flowers. Okay. Kind of going in and sort of going a little bit dry brushed around that outer bit there too, so that this transition is a little soft between the center and the outer area.
Okay, so it is made up of individual disc flowers that are in the center
Right.
and ray flowers on the outside,
Ray
which
flowers,
appear as petals.
Okay. Oh, they are flowers. All right.
Mm-hmm.
Disc flowers in the center. Interesting. See? It's starting to look like flowers. It's amazing. The optical illusion that happens. Kind of layered just right. This gets tedious right here, so just, if you need to give yourself a break, go do something and come back to it. This would be one of those. And really these ones should be bigger. I'm not sure why I'm making them that small right there. I think just because of the way I had the yellow. See if I can get those off. These both need to be bigger. They should be about the size of these ones here. So kind of just one instead of two right there. Okay. There we go. Almost done. We're going to go a little bit long today. I kind of figured we would. But this one, Mark was like, you can't do this in 2 hours. And I was like, well, I can try. Really want to do it, so we're just going to do the best we can to try to get done in time. We're almost done.
And there's no penalty for going over.
Okay, good. Penalty is less couch time with the dog before bedtime. Getting some of the darker color and just kind of putting that at the bottom of some of these, especially the ones that are kind of, closer to us that we notice the detail. So giving those centers a little bit of contrast there. Lighter color. Sienna. Okay. I can already tell there's some problem children in here, so we're just going to have to go in here and fix a few of these. But so far, I mean, I'm getting the feel. It's on its way. So I'm going to get some white because I've got some of these that I need to correct, and the white will just help it cover better. So I'm going to get the white and some of my yellow, cadmium yellow medium. And cadmium yellow medium is also opaque, so these two together should help cover some of the problems. And I'm going to start by just kind of dabbing on a little bit of this color, like up in here as highlights. And kind of just go above some of these dark bits. Go pretty thick here. And just kind of correct and make sure that they all sort of have a little bit of a yellow above the top of them, especially in that back area where we were being a little bit less careful. Right, and then as we get closer, I'm going to start sort of dabbing around them. So that I'm getting kind of individual type flowers. And I don't have to go on the bottom because I want this to be sort of highlighted on the top. So if I need more, I can come back in with my cadmium yellow medium, but just want to hit the tops of these. Try to give some of these some shape. And start laying in some little individual flower petals. Again, by the time I get back here, I'm just going to dab. Dot, dot, dot. And this is where having those darker yellows in here will really help, because now this the brighter yellow is going to stand out. And this will be that detail layer that we want people to notice. And it'll give our flowers more clarity. We can do these little brush strokes on top, leaving some of that darker showing, and all of a sudden it looks like a flower. And I'm gonna get some darker yellow to do alongside this. Get the cadmium yellow light and some India yellow with that white, and do some flowers petals below too. And some of these where they're needed. Not hard, it's just kind of, I think the hardest part is to know kind of where to pull back on the detail. And if you kind of keep in mind some of those things that we talked about last week about the, distance and the keeping your contrast in the foreground and things like that, then it's a little bit easier to know, okay, when I get about halfway, I can start to add a little bit of detail, and then when I get to the foreground, I can go full on dark and light all the way, bright saturated colors. like how it's turning out. And what we can do too at the very end is we can always add more gold to this. So if we decide it's too bright yellow, we can go back in and glaze over it to darken it up if we need to, because I have gone a little bit lighter with it than the reference photo is a little bit more golden yellow. So, but I do need to do this this color because it's opaque, so I need to have that white in it right now, and then as I get this finished, then once this layer dries I can add some glazing to this and change the tone just slightly. And having these kind of be fuzzy in the background is really important. That's that detail thing that I was talking about. You know, so saving the individual leaves and the really detailed individual petals for the foreground will really help sell the realism too, and the depth of the painting. Make the background look that much farther, keeping all this fuzzy. Don't do any details in back here. Dabbing. Keeping the colors soft and blurred. There's just a lot of these. It's taking a while. Clicking away over there.
Yes. Somebody had asked if people paint with music on.
I do.
And I
Or
said that
used
you that you do when you're not painting, like for a show or something.
Well, yeah, I used to, and now I never paint by myself anymore.
And then, of course, some of our longtime friends say that Mark sings.
Yeah.
I was like, yeah, I sing really well if you turn the radio up loud enough. And it's Lady Gaga.
Yeah, he can sing Lady Gaga like nobody's business. He's pretty good at Lady Gaga.
Oh. All right, I won't start.
Yep. All right. So I see an area here that's kind of not well defined. I'm going to just kind of get some other color to put in there. Try to break up that sameness there. Too much of the same everywhere. Okay, and now we're getting down to the nitty-gritty here in the foreground. I'm gonna start to really be a little bit more careful how I'm doing my petals too. Give it more detail. These ones that are on the bottom here I need to darken, but I think I'm just going to stick with this lighter color because it'll be easier to cover other things. The petals have lots of overlapping, so we can leave some of that background color showing in places like here and just sort of go around with a new layer.
So given the fun fact that we had earlier, this painting actually makes sense.
Why?
Because with that sunset, all the flowers are facing east.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I did use a photo for the sunflowers, and then I added a few extras, and then I changed the background so that it was more of a sunset because it was just gray sky and I wanted more color. So yeah, I like it. Did want to show you guys, while I'm almost done with these, I have my brush set. Some of you I've mentioned before might know about this, but I am going to be debuting a little secret show to show the behind the scenes. It'll be just a behind the scenes recording of the video that will be coming out with the brush set. So but the video won't be coming out yet. So patrons will get to watch the recording of that video. It'll only be live during the show, and then it won't be viewable after that until once the release happens, which will probably be later on this month or next month. So it'll just be like a little bonus perk for patrons, because I've got to paint a couple of paintings for do a couple of videos for the release of the brush set. I've taped off the pertinent information because I can't say what it is, but
it has been redacted.
There it is. There's my name right there. And here's the back side of it with my name also right there. Isn't that fun? It's got
That's
some of my
awesome.
artwork on it. And yeah, so we're going to be painting with these on Thursday with my $5 and $15 tier patrons. Normally that Thursday show is only for my $15 tier folks, but I'm including my $5 tier folks. If in case you're part of that tier, you can watch in on Thursday if you want to. And then of course that video will be public later, so it'll just be a preview of what'll be, and also the behind the scenes, of me recording, and I'll probably be talking about the set and how I pick the brushes and stuff like that. So if you want to check that out and you're a patron, I'll be having that link posted later on this week there on Patreon. And like I said, it'll only be live from probably 2 to 4 Central Time. And I'm sorry if it doesn't work for your time zone, but I can't have it released yet until I get permission. So, but
Getting close.
yeah, it's getting close. So I figured it'd be fun to get to include you guys. I always do better when I have an audience, because I like to perform to an audience. I like to do my painting to an audience anymore. It feels weird to paint by myself after 10 years of doing it with 12 more years of doing it with you guys. Most of that time live streaming. It's just weird how kind of becomes the norm. It was really scary at first, and now it's just like I can't do it without it. Now not doing it live feels weird. But got that one, and then I've got another project that I did with Strathmore that we're going to be premiering next week here on the channel. It'll be a recording, so we'll just chat live with you guys during the video, and it'll be a shorter video. It's like 40 minutes, but it's a really fun project that I did for Halloween with Strathmore and Princeton Select brushes. It's a dog and cat that is, I'll show it real quick. A little sneak preview. So that's what we'll be painting next week. Isn't that fun? Little vampire cat and dog ghost. My grandkids thought it was scary, so life goals achieved, yes. And then this one is the one we finished last Thursday for our $15 tier. 11 weeks of painting on this. Lots of detail. Really fun. Showed how to do the wording. We painted all that by hand. The only part we did with a pen was this part because it was so small. Everything else done by hand. Really fun. So patrons get traceables. I'll have a traceable for this. All the tiers 5 and 15 get traceables, and then if they're the $15 tier, they get the weekly video, and that'll be the one that the $5 folks can watch with us, get a little taste of the fun that we have. We have a really fun little group that joins us on Thursdays for the challenge videos. Normally they're recorded, so not everybody can join us live, but hopefully we'll get a good group watching live this week with the brush preview. I think it'll be fun. I'm really excited about that brush set coming out. And I'll have more information for you about how to buy it and all that when it gets closer to time. Right now I don't have any of that detail yet.
I don't think I'll be able to join.
You'll be able to, you'll be able to work, huh?
Yeah, I think I'll be in a exciting site quality meeting at that time.
Oh, darn.
Yeah, reviewing charts.
I like it.
It'll be awesome.
Will there be Excel?
Well, the charts are going to be created by Excel, so
See?
yeah.
You're going to be happy. You don't lie. You would much rather be with Excel than me. So.
Well, yes, and the creation of the charts maybe, but not talking about them.
Oh, I see. Okay, got it. That makes sense. All right, sorry. I wanted to be sure I gave that little announcement there about the live stream because it's kind of unusual. I don't normally do it like that. I usually, when I record my Thursdays, they're usually immediately available on my website to watch the replay, but this one won't be until I get released to, and then they'll be available later for the $15 tier folks. Well, 5 and 15 since they got to watch. So as soon as Patreon says that Princeton's the one with the brush set. As soon as they clear that brush set to be talked about, then I'll be able to release that video for public or for patrons in public. Also, it'll be on the. I think I'll probably have it on my website, and then they'll also do it kind of like the dog and cat will be on the Strathmore website or YouTube page, but also on mine. Both. Watch it either place.
Hey, real quick. Somebody asked about the pen that you use to do the text on the books.
Yeah.
What if they don't have one in the right color? What is there another way to do small line?
Yeah, you could do it in white and then just glaze over the white with color.
That's pretty smart.
Yeah. I'm going to go between here because these petals got a little solid right there. Get a little bit of that burnt sienna. Just anywhere where those petals get a little too mushed together. Give them a little separation of color. And also kind of tapping a little bit of that burnt sienna around the opening with the yellow. It will help kind of soften that transition between the petals and the center. Okay, we're almost there. What time are we? Okay. I'm gonna go a half hour over, I can tell already. That's all right. This is a lot of flowers, so. Sometimes you just gotta do it. Mostly I try to keep these Tuesdays to 2 hours, but sometimes get a project like this where I just really wanted to do it. And it wasn't long enough for a challenge video. You know, it's kind of one of those in-between ones where I knew it wasn't gonna take me 2-3 weeks to do. Usually do the challenge videos in about three or more weeks, you know, more challenging projects. Getting that burnt sienna. Going between some of them, adding to the center. You can also kind of dab it in the middle. This is that burnt sienna and yellow. Kind of adding like a bullseye almost to the center of these. Like that. Highlighting the centers just a little bit. Most of the bright color at the top. Okay. We are almost done. I haven't gone, they're still pretty messy down here, so you know, you can take more time than I did. I'm kind of run out of time tonight, but I'd probably go back in with, you know, more individual white and do some little highlights on individual petals and that kind of thing to really bring out the highlights on some of these. And think about the top part being, you know, facing the sun. So those petals being more lit up and the ones kind of at the bottom, not so much. So save your brightest highlights for the top petals. This is almost just pure white here. Okay. And then the last thing, we can go back in with something like the India yellow, which is a transparent yellow, which I always like to have on my palette because you sometimes want to glaze. We could even add just a tiny touch of the cadmium red, which is opaque. So if you had pyrrole orange, you could use that instead. They're pretty much a similar color. The pyrrole orange is just a little bit more orangey than the cadmium red, but I can go back in here and add this yellow cadmium yellow mixture with the pyrrole orange or cadmium red and India yellow here, and make these more golden. And I can even go over my green because it's not going to hurt anything, so I don't have to be super careful about where I put this, which is nice. But you can see up here how it's already kind of made it a little bit more golden. I'm going to go ahead and get some more of that orangey color, a little bit of the glaze. The glaze just makes it stick better when you add a little bit of water to thin out your paint colors. And maybe just kind of along the sides here, I'm going to go a little bit more orangey and save the middle for more yellow. But you can see that's kind of helping give it a little bit more depth too. And then I can also use this with a little tiny bit of the burnt sienna and glaze. And you always want to keep, the glaze handy. You don't want to go in too heavy with this. If you get too much of it, it can you might cover up. You don't want to cover up anything. I want to be able to see everything I've already painted. This is just to add a little depth of color, and I'm going underneath and like around the center a little bit to darken up the bottom half of those flowers where they're in shadow. Okay. And this is that burnt sienna cadmium red light mixture. Okay. That's good. Okay. You can do as much of this as you want. Glaze multiple times. You can do your sky, But I think that's going to be it for today. So those are our more kind of detailed ones. You can still see they're pretty impressionistic. Didn't go into too much detail there. So, but they're definitely more detailed than the ones back here. Back here we're just going like that. But when you see it from a distance, it all kind of, your brain sort of fills in the gaps. It's amazing. I love impressionist style art like this where you don't have to put in all the details and your brain already kind of just figures it out for you, I'm going to get some yellow and sign it down here at the bottom. And say thank you so much for watching tonight. Hope you paint along and like this video. You can even hype it if you really liked it. There's a new little feature that allows you to kind of help. Yeah, patreon.com/AngelaFineArt will have the traceable for this. I'll probably work on it tomorrow because this is going to be a lot, a lot of tracing. It may take me a while. So, but anyhow, that will have the traceable. I'll usually work on that, from the actual finished painting. So it's usually the next day you'll have the traceable to work on it at home. And then thankfulart.com has all of my older videos and resources, and so you can go and search for previous sunflower videos. You go to the tutorials section of thankfulart.com. If you're a patron, you can log in and download traceables and everything directly from it. It's a lot easier to search for things on the website than it is on Patreon, so we created it to make it really easy. You can watch all the videos, so all of my videos are embedded in the website, so if you're a patron, you can go there and watch all the videos. You have to, log in with your Patreon information, but makes it really easy. It's a good little website. So my brother made it for me. He knows what he's doing. All right, that's it. Thank you guys so much. We'll see you next time. Hope you enjoyed it. Bye.